Okay. So in the last lecture, we were talking about the degree distribution, and what we saw that the degree distribution for a real world network doesn't resemble that of a small world model, which is your Watt-Strogatz model, nor does it resemble the degree distribution of a random network. So for random network, it looked something like this, a bell-shaped curve. A bell-shaped curve actually represents an a situation or an environment which is what I would say is equal, where equality holds. So whenever we talk about height or weight, so most of the people have an average height or weight, and then there are a few people who are outliers who have very less weight or a very high weight. But when we talk about the degree distribution of a real world network, it looks something like this. So there is a whole lot of bias, and the bias is, so it is similar to the money distribution in our world. So the bias is most of the people have very less money, or if we talk in terms of degree, they have very less degree, and there are a few people who hold most of the money, or what I can say in this friendship network holds most of the degree. So why is it even happening so? So why does something like this happen? Can you uh, think of a reason why something like this will happen? So let's say it was about the popularity of Flipkart products. Again, you will see something like this. So all the products will not be bought equally. Rather, there are a few products which will be purchased by a lot of customers, and most of the products will just lie in the inventory and no one will order them. Can you think of some reasons why does it happen so? Similarly, if you talk about, let's say, songs, Bollywood songs or Hollywood songs, there are a whole lot of songs in the world, but most of these songs we wouldn't have even heard, and these are only a few songs which everyone hears and they get so popular. Same is the situation with novels, books, and almost everything, even researchers or actors. So why does it happen like that in the world? Why is there inequality?
It's really hard to come up with good stuff.
Okay. It's really hard to come up with, I would say, that level of quality. That is what Right says, right? Not so. A lot of people just end up making mediocre products or end up featuring mediocre movies, and there are only a few people who end up making a very good product. Okay. Any other reasons? So that is one valid reason. So if we think about from a marketing perspective, sounds good. So let's say I'm talking about marketing products. So what Ripe says is most of the products are actually not good, and there are only a few products which are very good. Do you think anything else can also be playing a role here? And the answer might lie in, what do you look at when you purchase a product at Flipkart? Assume that you are surfing Flipkart or Amazon and you are looking at, let's say, a headset which you want to buy. So what are the things which you look at when buying a particular product?
The
Is it
brand,
because
the ratings.
product gets famous, then it would more and more people would just buy it based on that. So you would rather buy a product that has already been bought by a lot of people than try something new.
Exactly. So that is the answer which Shagufta and Riot says. It's the rating. It's how many people have actually rated it before and have actually rated it in a nicer way. So in this context, I'm audible, right?
Yeah, man, you're audible.
Okay. So to understand it further, let's talk about a story. So more than a story, it's actually an experiment conducted by a sociologist, Duncan Watts. He is actually a very popular researcher, and what his research says is probably might he shouldn't be that much popular. So let's understand. Just a second. Uh, I'm unable to share my screen. Just give me a moment. Something is up. Just give me a moment. I'll join again. Somehow I'm unable to share the screen from my iPad. Just give me a moment. Okay, it's working. Just a second. Yes. So there was an experiment he did. So what the experiment was, he created an artificial music market. It was kind of an online website. So anyone, not anyone, he had certain dedicated volunteers who were the part of this experiment. They could register to this website and they could hear songs. So it was nothing but a song website. So these are certain kind of experiments which are done by researchers all over the world. So these experiments, they are very fascinating in the sense that, assume I want to see something like how an information spreads on a random network and how an information spreads on a scale free network. So or let's say on a small world network. Now we know that in the real world we don't have any of these networks. So real world networks are neither random networks nor are they the small world networks, or nor do they follow this Watt-Strogatz model. So what I mean to say, if you look at a real world network, so it won't be a random network, or it won't be a network in this particular topology, right? It will be something else. But assume you want to do an experiment and you want to see that if such networks existed in the real world, how will the information diffuse? So what researchers generally do is, they will have an experimental setting in which they'll have a website like this, and when the people will join this website, they will make the arrangements in such a way that you will fall in one of these networks, here or here, and these researchers will be the ones who will be simulating these links. So in a sense that your links will be pre-decided, and then they can share information with you and then see how this information traverses in this kind of topology. So the motivation of what I'm trying to say is, they can sort of simulate the environment, what is going to happen in this environment. So when anyone registers on this song website, any participant, so what they have actually having are two worlds. First one is the world 1 and second is world 2, and any participant can randomly fall in any of these two worlds. And please notice that participants who are in world 1, they know nothing of the other participants who are in the world 2, and vice versa. They don't even know which world they are in. They don't even know that worlds exist. So only the person who is simulating this environment knows that these worlds exist. Furthermore, in each of the world there are certain subworlds. So let me say in world 1 there are 10 subworlds. So both world 1 and world 2 are having certain properties which I am going to talk about. And this is my world 2, which is again having some subworlds. Again, a participant who is in this world, subworld 2, let's say, doesn't know anything about the participant who is in subworld 3. So basically the participants in different subworlds or different worlds cannot communicate with each other, and they do not know they do not have any information about the another world. So you can see it like they show in some sci-fi movies, that there are certain parallel worlds existing and different things are happening in the parallel worlds, and people are not aware that these parallel worlds even exist. So that's the kind of a setting we have. Now what happens, any participant who is in any subworld here, he can do certain things. So there are certain songs which are listed there. And one thing about these songs are the ones which have never been heard before. So they do not, so if it was a song like, let's say, Taylor Swift's Blank Space, then I would already have in mind that it's a good song. So they do not have any bias a priori, because all these songs are the new ones. So these new songs are listed here. They can listen to any of these songs, they can download it, and they can rate it. So this is how world 1 looks like, and each subworld of world 1 looks like this. So anyone can come, he can download the song, he can rate the song. So what we are going to look at the end, what are the ratings for the different songs. World 2, so each subworld of world 2 is also the same with a minor difference. The minor difference is here people know about each other's ratings. So here you can rate it, but you cannot see what others have rated. However, in the world 2, you can rate, but you can also see how many people have rated it, what is the rating, how many people have downloaded it, how many number of times. So that kind of a signal is available to you. So there is an additional signal which tells you what is the rating by the remaining people in the network. And the songs are arranged in the descending order of their rating. So if a song is having a 5-star rating, it appears first, so on and so forth. Now when we simulate this experiment, there are certain things which happen. So I hope that you could already guess what happened. When you look at any song in the world 1, and we are going to talk about subworlds also. So let me talk about a particular subworld in the world 1. So let me represent it like this. Let me say I represent people as circles and the songs as squares. It's going to be a bipartite network in this case. And I have an edge from a person to a song if that person has, let's say, rated that particular song. So this edge can also be weighted since it is a rated one. Right, so let's say this person heard this song, this person liked this song, this person liked this song, this person liked this song. So in a world like this, what will happen? Something which Rayet said. So a song which is really good will attract a large number of likes. So let's say this is a really good song, it's going to have a lot of people liking it. Similarly, if a song is not good, it won't have many people. So all the ratings which these songs are going to have, they are their natural ratings, and they are a good predictor of how qualitative they are in reality. So what was observed in such a subworld was, so I'm talking about the world 1 case where you are ignorant of the ratings of other person. So what was seen was more or less every song has has an equal rating. So definitely there were certain songs which had a very few rating and a certain songs which had a very high rating. So in such a case, if you draw a rating distribution of these songs, it would look something like this. So most of the songs are average. There are a few songs which are very bad, and there are a few songs which are very good. So that was observation number 1. Second observation was, if you compare the top songs of subworld 1 with the top songs of subworld 2. So we have seen that in subworld 1 you see a graph like this, right? So most of the songs are average, few songs which are good, few songs which are bad. Now if I look at the top songs and the worst songs of subworld 1, they are the same as the top and the worst songs of subworld 2. Same with 3, same 4. So what is happening? What is popular here is also popular here, is also popular here. So such a setting is a natural one. But I don't know what I should say, whether I should say natural or unnatural. So let me say it's an ideal setting in which every song gets rating according to what it deserves. But what happens in world 2, which actually represents our real world, here something else happens. And you can guess what happens. So if you look at this subworld 1, so as soon as one song starts getting more rating, people start becoming biased. They see that, okay, other people are liking this song, probably I should also download and rate that particular song. So somehow the song which I would say coincidentally or luckily gathers some a little bit of more rating in the beginning, it starts getting richer. So this kind of a phenomenon is called rich gets richer. That is what happens in the world too, right? So here you might observe a distribution like this. So there are only a few songs which go viral or which lie at the top. Observation number 1, and observation number 2, which is all the more striking, is what becomes popular here is not the popular one here. What is popular here is not popular here. So whatever song is at the top, whatever song top the charts here doesn't top the charts here. So each of these world is actually having a different top song. And that's actually an eye-opener result. So what it tells is the world which we live in, it has a amount of inequality and unpredictability. So if we take this world in which we are living in, and let's assume we have a parallel version of this world, so whatever actors are famous in this particular world might not be famous in that parallel world. Whatever researchers are today at the top of the world might not be at the top of the world in a parallel world. Someone else will be at top here. So what I mean to say is not exactly whoever got famous or whoever got money, it was a matter of luck. It was not exactly a matter of luck. Definitely there is certain sense of quality here also. But again, this kind of a social reinforcement, it increases the unpredictability and inequality. Okay. So provided given this experiment now, let's now move towards the third and the final model for how do we simulate a real world network, and that is exactly based on the observation which we made. And the observation was, if people see that someone is getting popular, we actually make that thing all the more popular. So this is us which who induce bias in the world. Everyone goes with the rich person. So based on this, can you now think of what the third model can be? It is a lot different from the previous two models in the sense that the previous two models, they were sort of static. They were not evolutionary models. They sort of assume that your network arrives all at once. So you can put, if a network has 100 nodes, so for a random network, you can pick all those 100 nodes at a once, and then for all the edges, you can just toss a coin and put all the edges. A similar thing was with your small world model, where you can just make a lattice and do some rewiring. The third model which we talk about, it says that your network, it evolves as a human being. So it's not that it suddenly becomes 25 years old or 30 years old. So what it becomes when it is 25 years old actually depends on what it was when it was 20 years old. If we look in a random network, all the edges are independent of each other, right? So let's say I have these 4 nodes in a random network. This edge here is independent of this edge here. So these are two separate coin tosses which decide whether there is an edge or not. So this edge here has nothing to do with this edge here. Same holds for your small world network. So whatever rewiring I am doing to a particular edge here doesn't impact the rewiring of any other edge. So all the edges are independent of each other. But in reality, that is not so. So coming to the third model, it says that network evolution happens. And how does it happen? So assume that I have a classroom and I want to model how the friendship network for this classroom will look like, let's say after a semester. So the model says you cannot directly create the classroom at the last day of the semester. You'll have to see what is happening at the first day of the semester. Whatever friendships are made during the first day, they impact what will happen on the second day. They impact what will happen on the third day. And that is what actually happens. And that's why we have all these link prediction algorithm, because whatever happens at day t impacts what will happen at the day t+1. So the model goes something like this. I have a classroom, and let's say there are certain, let's say initially this classroom had some 4 students the very first day. There are some 4 people in this room, and all these people are friends with each other. The next day, a new person comes into this room, and now this person has to make 4 friends. So we are assuming that every incoming node, it has to make 4 friends. So which 4 friends will this person make here? So there are only 4 people in the room, so it's going to connect to all these 4 people. Okay. Right now, if you look at the popularity of each node, let's say popularity is the degree of a node. How many friends you have is your popularity. So here, if we look at the popularity of this individual nodes here, it has 4 friends. So everyone has 4 friends as of now, right? Everyone is equally popular. Next day, one more person comes into this classroom, and now this person has to make friends. He also has to make 4 friends, right? So to make 4 friends, he will look at the popularity of each of these, and he'll tend to connect to the person who is more popular. But again here, all these people are equally popular. So he can pick any of these 4 and be friends with them. So let's say okay. Let's say he picks this person over here, this person, and this person. So these are the 4 friendships which this new node makes. And now the popularity of all of these change. So this node has a popularity of 4. This one starts having a popularity of 5. This one also 5. This one also 5. 5. And somehow, unfortunately, this node still have a popularity of 4. So now these 2 nodes somehow become the 2 non-popular nodes, and these remaining 4 nodes are the popular ones. In the next time, one new node comes in the network, and now it has again to make 4 links. Now please note that when this model is probabilistic, so when I say it will try to connect to the popular nodes, doesn't mean that it will definitely choose these 4 nodes only, the most popular one. So what I mean to say here is it tends to connect to those nodes, not deterministically it will connect. So how I can say it? I can say that the probability, let's say this node is V, the probability that this node V connects to the node I is proportional to the degree of the node I. So this is different than saying that this node V will definitely connect to a node having the highest popularity. It can still go and connect to a node having degree 4, which is less popular, but the probability of this happening is less. The probability that this node will connect to a node having a higher popularity is high. So this is the way in which this network will evolve, and at the end what will happen? So a node whose popularity increases at the beginning, it will start gaining more and more links, and towards the end of our simulation it will become a hub in the network. And when you look at the degree distribution of such a network, it will appear something to be like this. So this model is called preferential attachment model. Also the most popular model which is used for a network creation. And again, you should think about the questions like whether there will be a high clustering in this network. Will this network be having an average shortest path length? And how it will be having that average shortest path length? How the path length will become small in such a network? So these were the 3 basic models. So before moving on the next topic, let's discuss slightly about how do you write a code for simulating all of these models. So definitely you will find the inbuilt function in iGraph for doing this. But we should also think of how do we write a code for them, because let's say during some time or other you want to create a small change to a random model, or you want to, let's say, create a very small change to a small world network in how it functions, then you should know the inside core of these functions. This is also important for you in the sense that assume you are going to implement some other probabilistic model in some other domain. So how do you actually simulate that probabilistic model? So let's start with the random network here. So we are going to just think about a very basic pseudo code. It can be, you can think in C, Python or any other programming language. Let's say I'm given that I have to create a network on 100 nodes and every edge exists with a probability of 0.2. So how will you write the code? Can someone help me here? Step by step.
Could you repeat the question again?
Okay, so the question is you have to write a code, let's say in Python, from a scratch. We'll be discussing it for all the 3 kinds of models: the random network, the small world network, and the preferential attachment model. And we'll think about how do we write our own code for this. So the question now is, assume that these are my input parameters. I want you to write a code for a random network which has 100 nodes, and every edge in this network exists with a probability of 0.2. So what are the steps you will follow? So as an example, the first step will be create 100 vertices. What will be the next step? So definitely you can do it using a Gauss-Renyi function in iGraph. But again, if later on you want to create a small change into that code, you won't be able to do that if you don't know how do we incorporate these probabilistic elements in our code. Any idea what do I do next? So when we did it on paper, right, we had some 10 nodes here. Then for every edge, we tossed a coin and we saw whether it's a head or tail. If it was a head, we put the edge. If it was a tail, we do not put the edge. So how do you simulate this in a programming language? Let me make it for the moment 10 and 0.5. So how do you simulate this experiment in Python is the question.
Could you do it by generating random numbers?
Okay, so we are going to generate random number for every edge, right? So I can have a loop like for u in range 10, for v in range 10. You can put some more things like u should not be equals to v. So these two loops, this will go over every possible u comma v. And as Shagufta said, we are going to generate a random number. So what random number am I going to generate? Can you give me the range?
Couldn't you could take any range, right? And if the number lies in the first half of the range, let's say you have one probability, and
Perfect.
lies in the other half of the range, it's another option. So like that's for a 50-50% probability.
Perfect. So we can take any range. So let me take a range 1 to 10. And I would say that if my number is from 1 to 5, how do I write it? Let me say if my number lies in 1 to 5, I'll put an edge, otherwise not. Okay. So generally what you can do is simply use a random.uniform function, take a real number from the range of 0, 1, and if this number is less than 0.5, you put an edge, otherwise not. So that's how you can simulate a random network. Perfect. So I'm building it one by one so that we can actually understand this procedure for the preferential attachment model, which is not very simple. Okay, what about the small world network? Let's say in my network I have 10 nodes. Every node is connected to 2 nodes on the left and 2 nodes on the right, and my dividing probability is 0.2. So first you create a network having 10 nodes. So I create 10 nodes. And then I want to connect every node to 2 nodes on the left and 2 on the right. So you can write a code for this. So every node I connects to I plus 1, I plus 2, I minus 1, I minus 2. And you can take a modulus n because it's a ring. So if it's a 0th node, it should connect back to the last node. So let's say this part is done. Now what I want to do is rewire every edge with a probability 0.2. So I can have a loop for every edge in the network. I have to rewire it with a probability of 0.2. So again, how do we simulate 0.2? So you can generate a random number from 1 to 10, rewire it if this number is either 1 or 2. Or you can pick a number from 0 to 1, rewire if the number is less than equals to 0.2. And how do you rewire? So let's say it was the edge u comma v, you want to rewire it. So what you are going to do is pick up any vertex from the network, randomly pick any node from the network other than u and v. So let's say randomly pick a node and the node was w. So what you are going to do, delete the edge u comma v from the network and add the edge u comma w, and the edge has been rewired. And that is how you go for the small world network. Okay, how do we do it for a preferential attachment model now? Let's think about a particular iteration. Let's say my network as of now exists in this particular form. I am at timestamp t, and here I have a new node sitting which is waiting to be allocated certain connections. And let's say this node wants to make just one link, right? So how do you choose this link? So how will you insert your edge here? So what I want now is, see, if in case this connection was random, what I could do is randomly pick any of these nodes. So I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nodes, right? So I'll randomly pick any of these and I can insert an edge from this node to that particular node. But now I cannot pick that node randomly, right? So the probability of this node connecting to any particular node is proportional to the degree. So the probability that this node connects to this node 1 here is proportional to 2, let's say A. The probability that it connects to B is proportional to 3, connecting to this is proportional to 2, connecting to this is proportional to 4, 2 and 3. So first of all, let's try to think what are the actual probabilities. So I know that probability that the node U connects to the node V is proportional to the degree of V. So what if I want to convert it into an equality? Can you guess what should be the proportionality constant here? Let's say C is a proportionality constant. So what should be the value of C here? So what should be the exact probability? So what I'll do is I'll normalize this. How I'll normalize this? So here I'm talking about the degree of V. So this C I'm going to take it 1 divided by summation of degree of W, for W every node present in the network, right? So do you understand what I'm doing? So what is the probability that it connects to A? So what is the sum total of degrees of all these nodes here? 16, right? So the probability it connects to A is 2 by 16, 3 by 16, 2 by 16, 4 by 16. So these are the exact probabilities. And why we have chosen to divide it by the sum of degrees? Because now if you look at what is the probability that this node, the new node here will have an edge to any of the nodes in the network, will have an edge in the network. So if you add all these probabilities, that is 1. Right? That means it's going to make one link, but the probability that it connects here is 2 by 16, 3 by 16, 2 by 16, 4 by 16, 2 by 16, 3 by 16. Now can you suggest me an experiment, a real world experiment or a programming experiment for how do I make this connection? So I have shown you a network, I have shown you an incoming node here, and I have told you the different values of its probability for connecting to each node, right? So where should I connect to and how do you write a code for this? Any ideas? So forget about programming, think it is started on a paper, right? And I have given you different probabilities. Now to move further and for creating your network, you have to pick one of these nodes, right? You cannot randomly pick and say I'm going to connect it to D. There should be certain experiment which is probabilistic, and based on that experiment you should pick the node. And the probability that you pick D should be the highest. Doesn't mean you should deterministically pick D because it is highest. Only the probability that you pick D should be the highest. Now, how can you simulate that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, if I'm describing a real world experiment, let me just take a table and let me put a scale here. Let me say the range of this scale is from 0 to 1. What I'm going to do now is, for this node A here, it is 2 by 16. Rather, let me say the length of this scale goes from 0 to 16 here, right? So now A is 2 by 16. So I have a 2 here, right? So this portion is 2 by 16th of this scale. So I'll say that this portion belongs to node A. Next, I have B here. Let us go in a consecutive order, in an ascending order. So next we have a C here, right? So I'll take a 4 here. Now this portion is 2 by 16th of the scale again. So I'll say this portion belongs to C. Next, let's take E. Again, let me take a 6 here. This portion belongs to E, which is again 2 by 16th of this scale. Next, let's take F and B, which are 3 by 16 each. So this is F, and this is now 3 by 16th of this scale. F is here, sorry. And then we have what? FB. So this one belongs to B, and this remaining is now 4 by 16. And this 4 by 16, I'll say it belongs to the node D here, right? Now my experiment is I'll randomly take any object. It can be a coin or anything, and just throw it and let it randomly fall in any portion of this scale here. Right, just throw it in air and let it fall on any of the portions here. So it can fall anywhere randomly. So what is the probability that it will fall in this region? Is it clear? Are you lost anywhere? So what is the probability that it will fall in a region of F?
3 by 16.
3 by 16, right? So this entire scale is of length 16. So how do I define probability? It is the number of favorable outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. So this is my favorable part which I am looking for, which is 3, and my total part is 16. So the probability that it lies in this particular region is 3 by 16. Similarly, what is the probability that it will fall in this region? It is 4 by 16. Right? And then you can simulate this entire thing in a programming environment. How? So you can take a list, right? So this can be simulated using a list, and the different elements in the list will be, first will be 0, second will be 2 by 16, third will be 4 by 16, so on and so forth. The last element will be 16 by 16, then, or let me make it easy. So let's take our list like this. I have the elements 0, 2, 4, 6, 9, 12 and 16. So I'm going to create this list here. So what is this list? This is 0, then 0 plus degree of first node, then 0 plus degree of first node plus degree of second node, 0 plus degree of first node plus second node plus third node, basically the cumulative degrees. And then you randomly choose a number from 0 to 16 and see where it falls. So if it falls here, you should pick the node whose degree this region was depicting, like you can see here. So that is how you are going to choose a node for connecting this particular node here. Any doubt here? Make sure you ask that. So this is the main formula which is used in the preferential attachment model. Okay. So now, provided that we have talked about the network generation models, I suggest that you look up the different functions in iGraph which you use to create these models, create these networks, and look at their degree distribution and check whether they match what we discussed in the class or not. We'll now move to a different topic, which is centrality measures. I'll just give you an introduction to this. We'll formally start with centrality measures in our next lecture. So now we are taking a shift in our discussion. So till now the discussions which we were having were about the network on a whole. So this is the network on a whole, what is its diameter, what is the average path length, transitivity, how do you create such a network. So till now we were concerned about the entire network at a whole, as a whole. We are now taking a shift and will try to inspect the individual nodes now. So given a network, how important a particular node is. we are moving from a global perspective to a local perspective is how I would want to state is. So now we'll be looking at who is the most important or central person in a network. So assume I give you the friendship network of your classroom. So can you think of a few measures? So which person in your classroom do you think is the most important? You already might be doing so, right? You would have certain factors in your mind. So forget about networks as of now. So in general, which person do you deem important in a classroom? What are the criteria you use?
Whenever the ma'am or the professor asks a doubt, he's the one to answer it.
Okay, the
Something like that.
person. Okay, the person who is the most responsive one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's rephrase this question like this. Assume I send you to a company. You sit there for one day and watch the entire dynamics of what is happening in that organization or that company. And then based on this data which you are collecting there, I ask you, okay, after a day of inspection there, you tell me which employee is the most central here. So which employee do you think will be the most central? So what are the criterion you will use to identify which is the most important employee? And by employee, I mean it can be anything. So employee includes all the people who work there, the managers, people who do cleaning, the staff, the lift man, everyone. And all of you will have different measures of your importance. So some of you might deem the CEO to be important. Some of you might deem the person who spends the maximum number of hours on his desk the most important. Some of you might think that the person who has more number of connections or who collaborates more is the most important. So the definition of importance varies from person to person and from uh, environment to environment. So there was a person, Scott Adams. So what he said was, that if I'm looking at the power a person holds in the organization or the importance of a person in an organization, he says it is inversely proportional to the number of keys in his key ring, right? And again, it's a perspective based question. So he says that let's say a cleaning staff, he'll have the keys to every room, whereas a CEO might have key maybe to a single room, or maybe he won't have any key. So because these will be people who will be opening the doors for him. So it can be one metric for looking at who is the most important person. So the person who is having the least number of keys. But when we'll be talking about these important matrices in a network, we'll be restricting ourselves to the topology of a network. So we'll be simply looking at the structure of a network. So let's say I have a structure like this in a network. Right? And assume that in this network, I want to tell you which is the most important person. So simply look at the nodes and the edges and identify which person is the most important. And the reason why we'll be restricting ourselves to this is so whenever you have the social networks at hand, so their data sets, they are anonymized. And that's again a very interesting question. So I'll tell you this line of research. So we'll start with centrality measures in the next class. So assume that you want to collect the friendship network of your classroom. It is similar to, let's say I want the friendship network of Facebook. So how do you collect it? So no, you cannot go to individual person and survey who are your friends. So most of the people will be hesitant to tell you who their friends are, right? So it is similar to a question like, let's say in an organization, I want to figure out what is the average salary. Assume that you three have some marks which you received last semester, and I want to figure out what is the average marks you have. So I have a few ways. We have 4 people here. So let's say I have 4 people, 4 students, and I want to know an average of your marks in the last semester. Now, one idea is I ask each of your marks. right? So I ask Satvik, okay, speak up your marks, then Rai, speak up your marks, but maybe none of you is willing to do so. You do not want to expose your marks to me. In that case, I can ask you, okay, email your marks to me. So that's like a third party computation. You give your data to a third party, so that it's the responsibility of that third party to not to leak that data, do all the computation, and then give you back the result. So all four of you email me your marks, I compute an average and tell it to you. That is another way. But then the third party might not be trustworthy. So what if I tell Satvik's marks to Harshit or Harshit marks to Satvik? So that can create some contention. So do you think, is there a way in which your marks are not revealed to each other, your marks are also not revealed to a third party like me, and still you compute the average of your marks? So it's a very interesting area of research which is called a secure multi-party computation. Do you think there is any way? And there is a very, very simple way you can do this. Right away we can do this. So none of you will have to expose your actual marks and you can end up calculating the average. So think about this. We'll discuss the solution to this puzzle in the next class and then we'll continue with the centrality measures. So for a moment, think of this question like this. What if, let's say, I do not want the average, I simply want the sum of all of your marks. Let's say I'm not here, you four are there in this classroom and you can communicate with each other and you four want to know what is the sum of your marks without telling each other your marks. Do you think it's even possible? How many of you think it's possible? Okay, so I'll give you a slight idea, and the idea is in the uses of the random numbers. So think about how you can use random numbers, add or subtract them in the ways that you do not have to tell each other's marks to each other, and you can compute the average. Okay, so I am done. If you have no doubts, you can leave. So do think about this question. Do not search it on the internet. Try to think it on your own, and we'll discuss the solution in the next class. If you have something to comment on, or if you have any doubts, you can stay back and ask me.
Ma'am, regarding the extra class, the lost class, we decided on Monday 3:30 if that's fine.
Monday 3:30. Okay, works for me. Monday 3:30 is fine.
Okay.
3:30. Can we have it from like 3:40? So I have a class which ends exactly at 3:30. I want to
Oh,
have
okay.
some gap between that, so we can start at 3:40.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Sure, works.
Okay, perfect.